Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is assumptions. And we get to look at all the assumptions that we make, or even just some of the assumptions that we make, and how maybe exposing them and becoming aware of them can help to shift our experience and the richness of our experience of life. So before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your electrons, all your molecules. And as you exhale any tension, any stress, negativity, or fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine clean, crisp oxygen flowing into your lungs, flooding your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells and all your organs. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together, really softly. Rub your fingers against your palms to feel how delicious that sensation is, how the tickling and the tingling, and allow yourselves to become present right here, right now. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, Pat and Andrea. Welcome, welcome. Good afternoon, Pat. Excuse me. It's great to be here with you. It's a new week. And we're going to start out by looking at assumptions. And good morning, Jennifer. Welcome. I don't think we've seen you here for a long time, and maybe ever. Anyway, welcome. It's great to have you joining us. So today we're talking about assumptions. And a number of you who are regulars here know that Maggie had her own adventure the last week. It's hard to imagine that it was just last week. Man, oh man, what a crazy week. Anyway, she disappeared Sunday, July 18th, and she came back. Well, I got her back Wednesday. And I was thinking about assumptions. You know, we assume that life is going to go on as predicted, right? Like, I assume that Maggie would. Good morning, Robert. So good to see you here. I assumed that Maggie would be here, right? I didn't imagine that she would go on her own adventures. I didn't imagine that I would lose her. Yes, I agree, right, Robert? I agree 100%. So the thing is that assumption that Maggie would be here sometimes might lead me to not have as great an appreciation for her as I might, you know, because she's a handful. Maggie's a handful. So you know, she makes an incredible mess. She has a constant presence, and all those things, you know, sometimes it can get wearing. Oh, how funny, Pat. That's hysterical. Pat says grandson Tom saying, yes, Maggie, Maggie, Maggie. That's awesome. I love that she has her fans. I know that you guys tolerate me just to see Maggie. So anyway, I realized that so much of our lives, we take things for granted, right? Which is kind of making an ongoing assumption of food, shelter, electricity. I mean, we had electric outages twice this past week due to storms, and you know, it's very hot, and it's sort of assumed that things proceed the way that they are, you know, that things are on some kind of continuum. Robert says Maggie had to go on her initiation journey. Yeah, no joke. I don't know that it cured her of wanderlust. I don't know you know, what that's going to turn out to look like. But yeah, she definitely went. It was an initiation journey for me, I can tell you that. Anyway, uh, I'm just thinking about how when we go through our lives and we start taking things for granted. Jennifer says Maggie's gotten my cat's attention. That's funny because my cat does her best to ignore her. Anyway, the things we take for granted and, you know, assumptions that we make of continuity. And in one respect, that gives us a feeling of safety, certainly, to believe that we're going to that we have continuity, right? Because if we didn't believe that, then we could either be in a constant state of anticipation or positive expectation of adventure, for example, or we could also be in a fearful place, which is obviously not preferable. However, the assumptions that we make kind of make us numb to appreciation, I think, or certainly have the capacity to numb us to this sense of appreciation. Good morning, Grace Isis. So wonderful to have you joining us. Glad to have you in our energies as well, Grace Isis. So yeah, when we're talking about assumptions, let's look at the things in our lives that we take for granted. And in fact, one of the practices of gratitude is to be recognizing these things, this bounty that we just assume. Good morning, Christina. So good to have you joining us. So, for instance, you know, we assume that we'll be able to have food and water and shelter, and we assume so many conveniences that we have, and we don't, as a result of making those assumptions, we don't appreciate these things, right? We just take them for granted and imagine that they will continue to be there. And I'm wondering where we can cultivate this. Well, it is a practice of awareness and also of appreciation, right? When we don't take things for granted, we can appreciate them, even when there are challenges. For instance, like when Maggie knocks her food over and it goes all over the floor, and you know, rather than letting myself get too caught up in all the cleaning that I get to do, I can be appreciating that she's here. And I can tell you that my sense, I mean, I appreciate her always and always have. And I have a heightened experience of appreciation since she was gone and has come back. And I think that that's something that so many of us experience, that we don't know, you know, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. And I'm wondering if we could, excuse me. I take it to be that yawns are a release of energy. So maybe there's just been a lot of energy around this for me. That maybe we can appreciate what we've got while we've got it, to really enjoy it and cherish it, and like people, relationships, you know, even relationships that we might feel, I don't know what Maggie's doing. I hear chomping and I'm not sure where it is. Even if we have relationships that we feel are burdensome, there may be things to appreciate in those relationships while we have them, that we get to bring awareness to the tremendous gifts that we have in life that we often don't even recognize. So this is a gratitude practice. A gratitude practice is something that can be so powerful to shift our state of being into awareness and appreciation. And I've done gratitude practices at different times in my life, and there were times when I would just write all these things I was grateful for, but I wouldn't connect. I wouldn't really connect to my appreciation for those things, those people, those circumstances. And I think when we gain awareness, when we expand our awareness and recognition of the bounty of our lives, and allow ourselves to feel that in our hearts, because there are plenty of things that can aggravate us from one minute to another during the day, during the course of our lives. There are plenty of things that we can become indignant about, or angry about, or frustrated about. And I think when we bring ourselves back to recognizing some of the assumptions that we make, it can be a vehicle to automatically connect us to our gratitude. And there's a richness when we're able to really presence ourselves to that appreciation for the gifts of life that we have, that shifts our impatience, that shifts our frustration or disappointment or anger or sadness even. And Christina says, I think the pandemic did some of that. And not just the things you would have assumed, LOL, but even more surprising things, and even beliefs. Some were comfortable and others not so much. All part of the journey. Christina, I agree with you 1,000%. I think that the shifts of, or the awareness of assumptions and the breaking down of assumptions that the pandemic necessitated has really created a mass shift of awareness, or on a shift of awareness on a grand scale, which is so hopeful. I think certainly COVID has been tragic for so many people. And at the same time, I believe that it has provided us with some profound gifts, one of which is our awareness of interconnectedness. And as you said, Christina, a shift of values and a shift of recognition of what's important, and really being able to appreciate, being able to give another human being a hug, being able to really appreciate, and the ability to be present in the company of other humans. These were things that were just completely assumed, and oftentimes were a source of aggravation. And now they're hopefully the appreciation that we've gained and learned is remembered. I think too easily humans can be such creatures of habit And so easily we fall into habit and assumption. And it brings us to a place of not being present, right? Not being present to the gifts. And Kimberly, welcome, Kimberly. Kimberly says, thank you for sharing this. I'm in a relationship for 19 years, never married, just as good as I've been getting flustered. I love him and have to remember that the grass is not greener on the other side, and appreciate the love that we share and the bond that we have. That's awesome, Kimberly. It's important to presence ourselves to the newness of the moment, and the fact that while things may be somewhat predictable, there's no guarantee that the things that we are taking for granted or assuming are going to be are going to continue. So it's an interesting place to look at living life from the present and recognizing its fleetingness, while also being able to be engaged and not in the fear of the change, right? Yeah, but to be present to the bounty of the moment, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, that each moment is a gift. And when we can presence ourselves to the gift, then our lives become so much richer. Our experience becomes so much richer. Our joy expands. And our ability to be responsive expands. When we challenge these assumptions, like what if the electricity ran out? It's like, oh wow, I'm so grateful to have electricity. And I'm not particularly encouraging the plan, hope for the best and plan for the worst, because what we put our attention to multiplies. And I don't mean to be oblivious of potential issues. I mean, we can take precautions without being obsessed about living in the worst possible scenario, right? It's so interesting to me to notice the tightrope that we walk. We don't even know it's a tightrope, but we're walking a tightrope all the time, between continuity and disruption, right? And when we recognize that, I mean, we can recognize it with all different attitudes. We could recognize it with fear. We could recognize it with appreciation. We could recognize it with any number of permutations across that spectrum. I think we get to dance along the razor's edge, and that's the vitality of life, is the unpredictability of it, right? Because we can tend to get very bored or complacent when things have some continuity, and at the same time, if things were disrupted, then we would be really disoriented, and it would be very problematic. So I'm wondering how I kind of like the idea of dancing along the razor's edge. And when we recognize that things are fleeting, even though they seem not to be, it's kind of an illusion that we create for ourselves that things never change. But things do change all the time, and sometimes radically. And when we can cherish and presence ourselves to the moment, we can have an overall much richer experience of life. So we get wake-up calls, and oftentimes those wake-up calls come in the form of really devastating types of situations. And I guess I'm inviting us to be considering the possibility of waking ourselves up in a way that we can experience the richness of our lives rather than through devastation and despair and loss. That maybe we can just create a greater appreciation for the bounty that we have, for the wonderful things in our lives. And maybe as a result of that appreciation, what might come as a byproduct might be greater patience with others, maybe greater ability to flow. Oh, how funny, Kimberly. I just was saying the word flow, and I just see your chat here where you say the flow of life, the good and the bad, pushing through with gratitude. And life is full of love and grace, peace and kindness. Be with you all. It's a beautiful day. Woke up to the most powerful rain. My health is good and I'm able to breathe in the fresh air. Exactly, Kimberly, how beautiful, beautifully said. It is totally the flow of life, and to be in that place of presence and appreciation for the rain, for the sun, for whatever is happening in life, even the obstacles that we get to overcome. Good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you here with us. Rosalind says, I'm catching the end of today's topic, assumptions. So I'll be going back to the replay. Have a good rest of the day. So good that you stopped in, Rosalind. Really wonderful to have you. And Kimberly says, you look like you had a mohawk with Maggie on my head. That's so funny. I'm presuming that's what you mean, Kimberly. Yes, I not a hawk, a conure. Right, I have a conure. Anyway, yeah. So assumptions, when we the more we're able to relieve ourselves of assumptions, the more possibility we have for wonder and awe and appreciation and gratitude and anticipation, positive anticipation. Hi, Shireen. Welcome. So Shireen says I'm a conure instead of a mohawk. I think everybody should have a bird on their head. It would make us all take each other a whole lot and ourselves a whole lot less seriously, don't you think? If we all had a bird on the head. So anyway, I think when we recognize that we do make assumptions and we start challenging the assumptions, we can recognize how rich our lives are on so many different dimensions. Rosalind says, are deductions the decision that assumptions are validated? Oh, that's such an interesting and poetic question, Rosalind. I love the play of words. Are deductions the decision that assumptions are validated? Kimberly says, I do wish I had a sweet birdie. I had a parakeet. His name was Chirpy. Oh, I'm sorry for your loss, Kimberly. They wonderful people are animal friends, right? Just the best. Hi, Tammy. Welcome. So good to have you here. And Shireen says, our conditioning from culture and even past traumas causes us to see ourselves and the world differently. I agree 100%, Shireen. And the thing is that we get to choose the lessons that we learn from our trauma, from our past, from our experiences. And it's important to be aware of the lessons that we choose. Not, because especially from trauma, we can learn lessons of fear. And ultimately going through the things that we go through in our lives, hopefully we learn the lessons of strength and courage and resilience and possibility. And so we make assumptions about life's continuity. We make assumptions about ourselves. We make assumptions about other people. And so as we learn to question those assumptions, we allow ourselves to become closer to an experience of presence. Because, and back to your statement or question, Rosalind, about deductions, the decision that assumptions are validated. I think the idea of deduction is that we look at pieces and we put together a story. So maybe we use deductive reasoning to start making assumptions. And so maybe what you're saying is actually pretty accurate, that we use deductions to validate assumption. Interesting thought. And Shireen says, I mean to say some aspects of assumptions are hardwired. I agree, we must learn to challenge the assumptions. I agree too that certain assumptions are hardwired. Things are hardwired until we challenge them. I think that things become part of our assumptions, become part of ourselves. So we don't even see them because we're so immersed in them. And Kimberly says, Maggie's full of joy this Monday morning. Yes, she is really, she's got a lot to say about this whole topic of assumptions. If anybody can translate Maggie, that would be awesome. I haven't quite been able to do that as of yet, but I'm hoping that at some point I will be able to translate her musings for all of us. That would be amazing. Anyway, so assumptions. I'm sure you've heard the when we assume, it makes an ass of you and me, ASSUME. So what it does also is it separates ourselves from really being present and open to possibilities. So I invite all of us to have a look at what kinds of assumptions are we making, and when we expose those assumptions, how do our behaviors shift kind of naturally? Because when we recognize that, oh my gosh, I assumed that, and it might not really be that way, maybe it shifts our behavior. And as a result of that behavior shift, can shift an outcome and open up whole new possibilities. So I think it's agreement from Maggie. What do you think? Anyway, I think I'll call it a morning. Happy new week. Happy Monday to you. And maybe find one assumption that you make that you might be able to challenge. And Pat says, grandson Tom says, Maggie said he has to eat more chocolate. Tom is a very smart boy. Well, Rosalind, you're so welcome for today's Monday musing. And I thank you all for being here and being part of our conversation, and being such a vibrant and lively and supportive community. So much love to you. And I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live each weekday morning here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. Please check out the other wonderful programming on Enlightened World Network, on Enlightened World Living and EWN One with the Earth. And until next time, so